Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to learn about surrender of shares. Surrender of shares means it is a voluntary act of giving back or returning the shares holding by the shareholders. It is also known as cancellation of allotment of shares. What happens when you surrender your shares? When you surrender your shares, you will not be able to claim any right as a shareholder. It is a voluntary act of surrendering all the shares which a shareholder purchased by a company for cancelling the allotment of shares. In this process, the shareholder voluntarily returns the shares to the company. It happens because they cannot pay for future calls on the shares. It is similar to forfeiture, but instead of company taking action to reclaim the shares, the shareholder himself initiates the process of cancellation. Let's understand the difference between forfeiture and surrender of share. Both terms are confused in various cases, so it is good to get an idea by go through these differentiations one by one. Let me explain with the meaning. Forfeiture means compulsory termination of membership, which is this action is usually taken by the company, whereas surrender is not a compulsory termination. This is the decision which is taken by the shareholder himself to return back the shares, as he is not in a position to pay the future call money. On the basis of nature, it is penal in nature, it is voluntary in nature in case of surrender. The purpose of forfeiture is to punish the shareholder for non-payment. Surrender is done to cut the long procedure of forfeiture. Forfeited shares are partly paid up. Surrendered shares may be partly paid up or fully paid up. Time taken for forfeiture is so long, whereas time taken for surrendering a share is very limited. Forfeiture take place mainly because of non-payment of call money on the due date. Surrender take place due to inability of a shareholder to pay the call money at the right time, so he himself decides to return. Forfeiture is decided by the company, it's a company's initiative, whereas surrendering the shares are taken by the shareholder. When you forfeit a share, it affects the reputation of the shareholder, as it is a penal action taken by the company, whereas surrendering a share by a shareholder does not affect the reputation of the shareholder, as he decides to do the same with his own consent. So these are all the various differences between forfeiture and surrendering the shares. Now we are going to see few points which are the effects of surrender of shares. When a shareholder decides to surrender his share to the company, what are the impacts that he or she will going to face after surrendering? We are going to learn one by one. The Companies Act 2015 allows companies to accept surrender shares in accordance with their articles of association for failure by shareholder to pay any outstanding sums regarding those shares. Once the shares are surrendered, the company that issues them a duty to cancel them. The effect of surrender of share is as that of forfeiture. So the only difference between the both is that surrender of share is voluntary in nature, whereas forfeiture of the share is done by the company for non-payment of call money. So all the impact are as same as the forfeiture procedure. So now we are going to learn about the reasons why the surrendering happens. The primary reasons of surrender are discussed below. The first case may be exit strategy. When a shareholder feels to exit from a company, he may surrender his shares as a plan of existing strategy. Then dissatisfaction of the company, dissatisfaction regarding the company's performance may be a reason to surrender his shares. Sometimes company may not perform well or company's management will not be satisfactory, so the shareholder can make decision to surrender. Due to some financial reasons, shareholders may surrender their shares to raise their capital. In some cases, surrendering shares may be necessary to comply with legal or regulatory obligations given by the court order. So there is no other option. So the company shareholder may be compelled to surrender his share as legal action. Various impact of surrendering shares can be explained now one by one. The first thing is the shareholder who decides to surrender his share will lose his identity as a owner of the company. First thing will be taking back the right of a owner. The surrendering shares means giving up the shareholders' ownership from the company. As a result, the shareholder will no longer have any voting rights, or he will not be able to influence the company's decision while rendering meetings, or he can't be proxy at all. So he will also forfeit any potential financial benefits such as dividends or capital gains or associated with the ownership of those shares. The financial consequence of surrendering shares will vary depend upon the terms of surrender. Sometimes you will get compensation for surrendering your shares either at the original purchase price or based on the prevailing market value. Some cases the shares which are surrendered can be received some compensation. This compensation can vary or may not always be equal to the initial investment. So this is the financial procedure. When the company's ownership structure will change when the surrenders are shared by the shareholders. When a significant number of shareholders surrender their shares, the total structure of the ownership of a company will be automatically get changed. This can be especially relevant in small companies. So company's perception and market confidence will also be influenced by the decision of the shareholders to cancel the shares. So these are all the various impact of surrendering shares. So the decision to surrender shares should be carefully evaluated, taking into account individual special circumstances. So this is the thing regarding surrendering of shares. Hope you all understand the concept of surrendering the shares, the reason for surrendering, and the impact of surrendering shares in this video. Thank you.